So my name is Charlie Anderson, and standing here at a table grape field out in California. We get asked the question sometime: what are optimal conditions for burro robots to really work from a field condition perspective? And there are probably 4 or 5 particular things that help us out quite a bit, or help our burros to run best. The first thing are really a clean field condition. So I'm standing here in late November. There's not really much going on, but when there are really tall weeds in the center of the rows or throughout the rows, and when there are a lot of vines dangling down into the rows, the robot has to make sense of those, that can cause them to pause a bit as they're navigating through the field. The second thing, ideally, we have a preference for rows where there's not a huge berm in the center. When there's a big berm, what ends up happening, and this is a relatively large one, the robot has to straddle that berm, and as it's turning on top of the berm, it ends up using more battery than it otherwise would. So ideally, the driving conditions are relatively smooth terrain without a lot of berms in the center of the row, or berms at the edge of the row, or big ditches that the robot has to navigate through, because those degrade battery life. And then the second to the last thing that helps us quite a bit is when you take your packing tables and move them out of the end of a row into the adjacent row that is across the driveway, and you therefore pick the full row out. And so what that allows our robots to do is to navigate from row to row to row seamlessly without having to figure out how to get through all of the detritus that typically is sitting at the end of the row. And then finally, the last thing, and perhaps the most important thing, is having crews understand how to interact and behave around robots. So kind of training people to use them, understanding, if you push the red button, the robot will stop. You can send the things back and forth. Just training your crews to actually understand that, and making sure that they understand that if they leave their wheelbarrow in the center, the robot's going to stop for that thing. It can't really go around, which prevents it from servicing other pickers in the road. So to recap, clean field conditions to the extent possible, not a lot of weeds, not a lot of vines hanging down, relatively flat terrain in the rows, ideally to the extent possible, moving the pack tables out of the row ends into the adjacent row, and then training your crews so they understand, if my wheelbarrow's in the center of the row, no robot can go through it, it's going to stop and wait. And if I've got other crews down the row, or other people in my crew down the row, they can't be serviced by the robot until I move. So those are the dominant things that we find enable growers to get the maximum level of productivity out of these robots.